All right, so we finished up talking about how I would interpret the slope, and then we would want to interpret the y-intercept value. So again, y is your number of tackles, right? So the intercept value is going to be when x equals 0. So when x equals 0, meaning that someone weighs 0 pounds, they would make negative 70 tackles, which theoretically makes no sense within this concept, right? So it's okay if your interpretation of the y value in context doesn't make any sense. Like you can't have negative 70 tackles and nobody weighs 0 pounds. All right. But if you look at the graph, you might say your x-intercept could make more sense. Like if somebody would make 0 tackles if they weigh, 120, 40, 60, 80, so 140 pounds, but that also kind of doesn't make sense. This might not necessarily be the best example for linear. Like you could weigh under 140 pounds and still make tackles depending on the level of football you're playing. So this is probably talking about like NFL football, professional football potentially. I don't know. We don't know all the answers, but it kind of is looking at real world data and trying to make a linear progression. It's more so maybe looking to progress as you get higher in weight, because it asks us to predict for 267 pounds, which would be, if you go over here, this looks like it's breaking apart 220, 40, 60. So somewhere up here, somewhere around 10, 20, 40, 60. So yeah, and if you plug into the equation and do 0. You do 515 thousandths times 267 minus 70, you get 67 and 289 thousandths tackles, or what it would be what y equals, which if you think about that in terms of tackles, you'd make about 67 tackles. And so that's kind of how we would get there, because we got to round it to a nearest whole number for it to make sense. So that would be my prediction, is 67 tackles, and how I get this. Now, how do I do this whole process in Desmos, right? So let's kind of go back up here to this other example of work. And if you go into Desmos, there's actually a help feature. And there's also, I'll share with you this document that shows you another way to do it. There's two ways to do it. You can actually just kind of do it this way, which is a little less confusing at times, but this way it prompts you right in Desmos, so you don't have to refer back and forth between the document and Desmos all the time. The first thing it tells you to do is to click on the little help button and then click on regressions. At that point, you can pretty much follow directions. It says to click on the plus sign, but I was able to get it to work without that. So let's try it again. We're going to do help regressions. All right, first let's get some data. It says head over to Google Docs, copy and paste this. Like you can copy. All right, so I figured out why it wasn't working for me. What I did to create this first one was I used a Word document. And when I used the Word document, there were no dollar signs here. So when I deleted the dollar signs from this Word document, it included the titles for each part. I was able to paste them in, and it works. However, it doesn't work if instead of a Word document, you delete the dollar signs and you paste them in. It doesn't work there. So the next step would be to click on the sample data and open up a spreadsheet.